It was a crisp autumn afternoon in Carmel by the Sea, a charming little town along the California coast where the waves met the shore with a rhythmic grace, and the locals lived their lives in an easy, laid-back manner. At the center of this idyllic town stood a cozy, rustic restaurant, known for its understated charm and delectable Italian fare. The restaurant, called Cielo di Sogno, was beloved by tourists and locals alike. Its rich, aged wood beams and warm lighting created an inviting atmosphere, with patrons often losing track of time as they sipped wine and indulged in the chef's signature pasta dishes. Behind the counter, managing the day-to-day operations of the restaurant, was none other than Clint Eastwood, the legendary actor, director, and one of Hollywood's most iconic figures. But to the regulars in town, Clint Eastwood wasn't the towering star of the silver screen. He was simply a quiet, reserved man who happened to own the place. Many people who came into the restaurant on a regular basis had no idea who their humble, soft-spoken boss was. Clint was content to remain in the background, focusing on the management of his business and living out a peaceful life away from the frenzy of the Hollywood spotlight. Among the staff was a young waitress named Emily, a college student working to make ends meet while studying English literature. She had moved to Carmel with big dreams of becoming a novelist, but had found herself, for the time being, serving tables at Cielo di Sogno. Emily was a vibrant and ambitious young woman with a sharp wit and a knack for dealing with difficult customers. However, she had a tendency to speak her mind, sometimes without considering the consequences. It was a busy Friday evening when Emily's path crossed with Clint's in a way that no one would ever forget. The restaurant was packed, the dim hum of conversation mixing with the clink of glasses and the gentle strumming of a guitarist in the corner. Emily was bustling between tables, carrying plates of gnocchi, pasta primavera, and marinara sauce. It was during one of her trips to the kitchen that she noticed a familiar face sitting in the corner booth, staring out the window. The man had a rugged appearance, gray hair, and a quiet aura of authority. He was wearing a simple black jacket and a baseball cap, as though he were trying to remain incognito. But for Emily, there was no mistaking the man who had been the face of action films for decades. It was Clint Eastwood. His eyes, his posture, the unmistakable set of his jaw. She had heard whispers about his ownership of the restaurant, but had never seen him in person. Her curiosity got the better of her. As she approached his table with a tray of water, she offered a polite smile. "Anything I can get you tonight, sir?" she asked, trying to maintain a professional demeanor, though her heart was racing. Clint looked up slowly, his piercing blue eyes locking onto hers. He gave a slight nod. "I'll just have a glass of wine," he said in his gravelly voice, which sounded like it had weathered decades of hard work and stories. Emily, always keen to impress and quick with a joke, couldn't resist. "A glass of wine for the man with no name," she said, referencing one of Eastwood's most famous roles. The irony of making a joke about a man known for his stoic, rugged characters wasn't lost on her. She couldn't help herself, though. She'd grown up watching his films and admired his legendary status, even if she didn't have the typical starstruck reaction. To her, Clint Eastwood was just another regular guy. Clint's face didn't shift, though his lips curled slightly in an attempt at a smile. He didn't respond verbally, but Emily could see the slight flicker of amusement in his eyes. As she turned to walk away, Emily couldn't help herself. "I mean, no offense, but you don't look like someone who owns a classy Italian joint like this," she added with a smirk, almost under her breath. She hadn't meant anything malicious by the comment. It was just her way of speaking off the cuff. Clint was the type of man who didn't look like he was interested in the finer things in life, and to her, it seemed like a funny observation. She didn't expect Clint to respond, and he didn't. Instead, he merely watched her walk away, his expression unreadable. The evening passed, and Emily continued serving customers, laughing with her colleagues, and moving about the restaurant with a sense of carefree energy. But as the night wore on, the tension in the air seemed to grow thicker, and there was an odd feeling that something wasn't quite right. She couldn't pinpoint it, but she felt as though something was off. A few minutes later, Clint stood up from his booth and made his way toward the exit. Emily, busy serving another table, didn't notice him leaving until she was standing behind the counter, preparing to ring in some orders. It was then that she noticed a figure standing near the door. Clint Eastwood himself, accompanied by a couple of staff members, including the manager of the restaurant. The staff was gathered around Clint, whispering among themselves, with Clint standing there, his hands tucked into his jacket pockets, looking like a man who'd been through his fair share of storms. The manager, a woman named Susan, approached Emily with a serious expression on her face. "Emily," she said, her voice low, "can you come over here for a moment?" Emily's stomach dropped. She had no idea what was going on. She followed Susan to the manager's office, where Clint was now sitting behind a desk, looking at her with that same unreadable expression. The air in the room felt heavy. "Clint Eastwood, the man you just served, is the owner of this restaurant," Susan said, her tone even but with a slight edge to it. "We need to have a serious talk about your behavior tonight." Emily's heart raced as realization struck. The person she had just cracked jokes about was the very man who signed her paycheck. She'd insulted Clint Eastwood, the Hollywood legend, without even realizing who he truly was. The manager continued, "Emily, while we all appreciate your energy and your enthusiasm, there's a certain level of respect that you need to maintain when you're representing this restaurant. Clint has been very generous with his time and his support, but this behavior is not acceptable." Emily swallowed hard. I didn't know. I didn't mean anything by it," she stammered. "I was just—" Clint raised his hand, silencing her. His voice was calm but firm. "I understand, Emily. We all make mistakes. But this place, it's more than just a restaurant to me. It's a part of the community." He paused and gave her a long look. "But next time you want to make a joke, maybe consider who you're talking to first." Emily felt the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. She had spoken without thinking, and now she was facing the consequences. But Clint's demeanor softened, and he gave her a small nod. "I don't hold grudges," he said, his voice gravelly but with a touch of warmth. "Just make sure you learn from this." The meeting ended with Clint offering her a chance to redeem herself, which she gratefully accepted. It wasn't the harsh punishment she had feared, but rather a moment of reflection. From then on, Emily worked harder than ever to prove her professionalism and to show Clint that she understood the value of respect. In the end, the incident became a story that Emily would tell for years to come. The time she unknowingly insulted Clint Eastwood. But more than that, it became a valuable lesson in humility and the importance of always thinking before speaking, especially when you didn't know who was listening.